Thanks for being here. Today, we're going to feature Monica Kelly, the director of the Sterling Main Street program. And we're just going to turn it right over to Monica.
Thanks, Scott. Like Scott said, my name is Monica Kelly. I'm the executive director for the Sterling Chamber of Commerce, which recently, when I started in February, merged. It was two entities. It was Main Street Sterling and the Sterling Chamber of Commerce. And both organizations wanted and needed a full-time director. Both organizations in a very small community that Sterling is, needed just to come together as one group. They were both trying to do the same thing. They were both running the same kind of events. They were both utilizing the same businesses for membership. So before my time, they made up a committee. They went to the city and they presented a merger of the two committees, and they got me. So I started as the director in February of 2023. And the way that looks like is basically, I'm sorry, I'm on two different computers because this computer has a microphone and a camera, and my desktop does not. So I'm looking back and forth to keep things straight. What that looks like is basically it's the same as if you were just a chamber or a Main Street. I just keep I just try to keep more a Main Street, approach in my mind, because we are a Main Street community. We do have that accreditation. So we have to keep those 4 points, in check and make sure we're fulfilling those duties that we're held to. So I have under my board, I have my executive board, but then I have 4 subcommittees, and those create the 4 points that Main Street needs to feature. So with that, I've got a design committee. I have Main Street, which is its own little committee. It's a couple people on that organization, and promotions. And those people have chairs. They answer to the board. They work with me, and we fulfill all those different points of Main Street. From a Sterling aspect, I know Scott asked me to just kind of speak on a few different things we've been doing here in Sterling, what I've been doing as far as a director, and then talk about a little bit. And I don't have a whole lot of information that I can share with you about it, but back in June, Sterling, the city of Sterling, found out that we were the recipient of one of the HEAL grants. The city of Sterling applied on behalf of a business owner, a building owner here in Sterling, for what used to be called the Old Corwin's Corner. It's 105, make sure I get the address right here for you, 105 East Main Street. In a previous life, it was a gas station. It was a auto shop. It was owned by a family for many, many years, was purchased by a new owner, and they were looking at things that Sterling needed, such as housing, such as restaurant, things like that. So in the front of that building is actually a liquor store, the first one in Sterling. And then in the back of that building now, one of their phases of the project is going to be a restaurant downstairs. We did the ribbon cutting back this spring, for the groundbreaking, I guess you would call it, not the ribbon cutting, because it's not open. And then upstairs, they're focusing on second-story housing. So there will be loft living up there available. And that's really where they're working right now. Most of the construction going on is in the lofts upstairs to get those up and going. And then they'll start working downstairs once they get more of a direction for how the restaurant and the chef and the kitchen and things like that are going to go. So as far as events go in Sterling, when we merged the two boards together, Chamber and Main Street, there were a lot of things that Main Street did, and there were a lot of things that Chamber did. And once those all came under one umbrella, those became my job to promote and organize and things like that. So one of the first projects I took on when I started here in Sterling was what we call Minding Our Business. It's a 3-part lunch and learn event that Sterling has hosted for 2 years now. What we do is it's split up into 3 different times. Like I said, the first one was back in March, and I chose to focus that specific lunch and learn on mental health awareness and mental health in the workplace. How to identify problems, whether you are the low man on the totem pole or you are the head person in charge. Where to go for those resources and things like that. We had Erin Sheldress from Wichita come and speak on behalf, and we had that lunch catered in. It was held at Sterling College. The second one we just hosted, it was last Monday, and that one is aimed more towards our agriculture community, which with being in Rice County, most of our industry is ag or manufacturing. And we usually host this one actually in the middle of July, but due to all of the rain that we've kind of oddly had here in the middle of July, we pushed that back because harvest got pushed back. And if you don't have farmers, you don't have people that work in the co-op and things like that, then you really don't have an audience. So I decided to push that back to August. Our attendance was a little lower because like the CEO of Central Prairie said when he came to present that morning, it was when he left, they had just had their second load of grain come in, still from wheat harvest on the 7th of August. So they're still busy with all of that. But at this Lunch and Learn we hosted, I had the Kansas Department of Ag send an economist down for us, and we had a update from them, basically a statewide market update. They talked about harvest conditions, they talked about weather conditions, they talked about trade conditions that just affect everybody in the state of Kansas, whether it was livestock, crops, commodities, you know, all those sorts of facets. Then we had Mike Corbis, who's the CEO of Central Prairie Co-op, give a more drilled down local update, how their commodities market is doing around here. He gave a harvest update, bushels of grain that's come in, that sort of thing. And then we took a break for lunch, and everybody kind of got a time to network and meet some people that you normally wouldn't see, because it is a combination of businessmen and women from the community. We had a lot of Rotarians that were there this time. We had, of course, a large number of our ag community, and there was time for networking during lunch. And then after lunch, we reconvened and we had a 4-person panel. The topic of the panel was local food systems. We are pretty fortunate in Rice County to have an organization called Harvest Hub. They're a non-for-profit organization that their goal is to make local food, local grocers, commercial kitchens more accessible to folks like myself, who I brew beer at home, and if I wanted to take that on a larger scale, work in a commercial kitchen, something like that, or caterers, if they would like to cater a larger event and don't have the space at home, they have a commercial kitchen they can go to up in Bushton. There will be one opening in Sterling soon. That's something that Harvest Hub was given grant funds to make happen in our community. So I had Christy Showalter, who was our new Harvest Hub director here in Rice County. She was one of the people on the panel. I had Megan Kramer from Kansas Farm Bureau and Shop Kansas Farms. That was a organization created by Rick McNary, and he noticed the need for something like this in 2020 during COVID, when his wife went to the grocery store and told him, there's nothing at the store, no meat, I can't find anything. Where can we go to buy this locally? How can I support my local community and feed my family at the same time? So it started out as a Facebook group to bring local vendors together, meat, grain, crafts, honey, you name it, he found it. Started out as a Facebook page, grew into what's called Shop Kansas Farms, which we had an event here in Rice County that was in Lyons. It was a gigantic vendor fair of everything you could possibly think to find that somebody would make, grow, or create on their farm. So we had Megan from Kansas Farm Bureau represent them. We had a local feed yard manager, Garrett Farney, come from Zim's Feedlot, and he represented the livestock side of the local food systems, kind of explained, you know, just because they are a large feedlot doesn't mean that different small cattle producers, if the need or the want arises, they can't feed their cattle out at their feedlot, and what that looks like from a local standpoint. And then we had Mike Corbis again from Central Prairie, and he was there on behalf of a new store, farm store that they're opening here in Sterling at their co-op. Basically, it's a little bitty version of what I would call the Shop Kansas Farms. They've got different locally sourced meats, chicken, beef, lamb, which is pretty cool. That's kind of hard to find around here unless you want to drive to Hutchinson or Wichita. Eggs, dairy, crafts. They still have some small items for sale, like you would need for your garden or your farm or things like that. So we had Carly Frederick moderate that from Rice County Community Foundation and Frederick Harvesting. That's her family's business. And we had about a 45-minute session with them, and the people, we opened it up for questions. And then the last one that we are hosting is in October, and it's in partnership with Wichita State University. What that one looks like is more towards manufacturing. We have a ton of manufacturing businesses in our county. We have KW Welders, we have Kansas Ethanol, we have JCAM, and we have just so many. Lion Salt is a really big and manufacturer in Northern Salt here in our county. So just highlighting those kind of businesses and showing, what we do produce and send out of Rice County and out of Sterling. And then Wichita State provides 2 speakers for that as well. Let's see. I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but I'm just trying to tell you what all we have to do here in Sterling, because it's a little community, but it is a really busy place and a really great place to be. I don't know if you're familiar with Sterling, but we have a huge historic 4th of July celebration. I can't tell you, and I should know the answer to this, how many years it's been going on, but I do know we have had 85 years of turtle races. So we have kids all throughout the community, not just in Sterling, all over Rice County. People come from everywhere for the celebration. We have some days it's a 3-day celebration, some days like this year, because it was on a weekday, it's just a Monday, Tuesday kind of thing. A fireworks display, we have vendors, we have food trucks, we have different sporting events, like we have a basketball tournament, a volleyball tournament, horseshoes, hole-in-one contest. There's theater 3 nights a week that you can go watch, or three days during the celebration. There's a ton of things for people to come and do at the 4th of July. So I'm going to quit rambling for a second and see if, Scott, is there anything else that you think I need to discuss, or you want me to share, or
No, I think that's really good. A couple of things that I would emphasize is, when Sterling first got in the program 30 years ago, you were a Main Street organization, and there was a strong chamber in town. And then over the years, those responsibilities kind of got blurry, and so I think you guys are a really good example of how you've merged and became one organization and are making it work. And I think there's a couple of cool things about that. One is it's still making things work and happen in the community.
Yeah.
And somebody's doing things now. But I like that you are addressing bigger issues than just downtown. That you're a small enough community that you're looking at food issues and how ag fits into all that, and what you talked about, bringing in all the speakers and helping people understand that, and the manufacturing. And so, there are benefits beyond just Main Street, especially in a small community where Main Street's it. Everything has to fit together. So I think that's kind of my takeaway from that, is that you guys are doing that well. So
yes, in Sterling, if you ever visited the community, the heart of the community is our Main Street, our downtown district. If you're looking for, except for maybe Casey's and Subway and Sonic that are on the north end of town, everything is downtown. But that encompasses, we have an IT department, we have an IT business downtown. We have, like I said, the co-op is downtown. We have a fueling station downtown. We even have a bowling alley downtown that's technically in our district. So, I mean, there's a ton of different things in our downtown district, but all of those have different ties to other parts of our community. So in bridging those two together, it was really important to make the whole community feel involved, because I know, and this is just a fact, for a long time, those businesses outside of the Main Street district felt a disconnect, and they didn't feel like they were being supported, because like you said, back 30 years ago, Main Street was a very strong, new entity in Sterling. And as that grew, the chamber kind of took a backseat, and then it ramped back up again, because like many boards have experienced in many organizations, people get older, people phase off of boards. It's harder to get younger individuals involved, and they ebb and flow, and so we're pretty lucky that now I think we have a pretty good, strong team around everything, because like I said, I've got my committees, and I'm pretty thankful and lucky to have the former Main Street director, 2 former Main Street directors actually on my board, whether in a board capacity or a committee capacity. One of them, she was involved in Main Street from the very, very beginning, and she is the head of my design committee. So she takes care of without me even having to think. She tells me what to do basically, and says that it's time to take care of this downtown, and it's time to switch these banners out, and it's time to take the, the flowers and get them all ready at Suitsman. So I'm pretty lucky in just my 6 months of being here that I have a really strong team around me to help make that joint venture even stronger than the two of them separately were.
And I think you just made another great point that I talk about often with communities that are thinking about getting into the program or being more involved in Main Street. I'm often asked, how long are we in the program? And I always say, why would you not always do Main Street? And,
Right.
and you just gave a great example of how organizations flow and change and the dynamics of an organization. It can be really strong for a few years, and then a few changes on the board or directors, and all of a sudden the organization maybe is not as strong, but that's not a reason to give it up. You
No.
just keep working through it, and eventually, the ebb and flow was a great example of that you just mentioned. So anybody have any questions for Monica? Janet asked, could you share more about the community kitchen?
I will try. I'm fortunate because I have a couple of good friends of mine that are on the tourism board and the e-communities and Harvest Hub. So I've kind of learned a little bit about it. They saw a need for commercial spaces in our county. Actually came about because of a honey producer. She wanted to go a little bit bigger scale, couldn't get the correct licensing to do it out of her home. And they started doing some research and learned that you can, with some grant dollars, you can build these commercial community kitchens, and you can hold the licensing there. You can take your product to the kitchen, you can cook it, build it, create it, whatever it is you need to do, package it. And then at that point, you went through the proper channels for the KDA and things like that, to where you can actually sell them rather than give them away or something to that effect. Those started long before I stepped into this position. I do know we have one up in Bushton, which is in the northwest corner of our county. And then they're going to put one down here in Sterling as well. So that way we're spread out throughout the county. And I could get more information from our Harvest Hub director if anybody would like to know how they got started on that.
Hey, Monica, this is Megan in Bonner Springs. I'd love some information on the commercial kitchen. I've been researching. And so I don't know if you could put your email in the chat or something, but I could connect to you that way.
I'm making a note of that too. And I'll ask about the grants, how they got their grant funding too for Harvest Hub. I'll ask that too.
Thanks.
Here's my email address. Will the HEAL project second floor housing provide short-term rentals, long-term rentals, or student housing? Yes, to all of those, I think. I'm not sure they have a timeline in mind. We have a lot of college kids here in Sterling, and for the most part, they're good, responsible college students. I say that because they're college students, so but a lot of them do like to live off campus. Once they complete their freshman year, I think they're allowed to. So I think that would be an option. And you think about it, I'm not old, but I don't want to live in a second story apartment with kids. So to me, it could be easily geared towards a younger community. Maybe first time home, longer term like that, maybe some student housing. But those are all things I've heard those building owners, discuss and use as an idea.
Well, I don't see anything. Monica, great job.
Thank you.
Kind of a great overview of what's happening in Sterling. Before we wrap up, I want to remind everybody that our next quarterly training session is in Sterling. It's not in Sterling. I'm glad you didn't fall out of your chair. It's in Salina on September 7th and 8th. I just dropped the link to the registration in the chat. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so ASAP. I did find out late last week that they've extended the room reservation deadline. So that was the 12th, and I think it's moved to the 25th, but we'll be sending more information about that this week. And those of you, once you've registered, we'll be emailing you about the food, the Taste of Downtown event. That will be a separate event, and there will be some costs associated with that. But when you register, we'll send everybody that information to see who's interested in that. And then the next Main Street Monday is September 11th. So, and then the last quarterly training of this year will be in Dodge City, connected with the tourism conference. We will have information about that soon. I've been talking to Bridget with the tourism office this morning about how we're going to deal with the registrations for the tourism conference. Also, the next round of HEAL grants have opened today. Those of you who received HEAL grants in the first round will be eligible again. If you're a community like Sterling, you won't be eligible this time because you just got a HEAL grant. But get that project done in a couple of rounds, you'll be able to apply again. The workshop is at 10 a.m. Friday morning. Tara just put the link to the HEAL workshop in the chat. So there it is. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Also, Scott, just the announcement that the HEAL amount has raised to 100,000 maximum, as opposed to the 75,000 we've had. And I believe the facade grant has gone up too, but I'm not sure the exact amount on that.
40,000 for facades.
Is the facade thing separate from HEAL, or is that a part of HEAL?
It's part of HEAL.
Okay,
Yeah, you
I
can
wasn't
apply
familiar
for a
with
building grant. You could apply for a building grant or a facade grant. So
okay.
There's also some news coming if you have a historic district in your main street that's actually coming from SHPO. We can't announce it yet, but it's coming soon, about some grant opportunities for main streets through SHPO. So,
well, with that, we'll let you all go. Everybody have a great week. Holler if you have any questions or need any help, and we'll see you in Salina in early September.